Hello and good evening as always to those of you who are tuning in for another episode of Fleapit After Dark. I'm your host, Jeremy Brown, kicking it back as usual and getting by in our crazy world as we continue to tread on genre movies and cult films that could use that extra spotlight. Tonight, I am more than pleased to be joined by actor, producer, host of the Slothcast, and co-host of Drunk on Movies, Anthony Sisco. And he has in fact picked the movie that we're going to be covering, a criminally overlooked film I hadn't seen in over a decade, and wound up loving this time around. The directing debut from writer-director and filmmaker Christopher McQuarrie, a neo-noir western crime thriller, and starring Benicio del Toro, Ryan Philippe, and James Caan. Tonight's show is The Way of the Gun.
For the record, I'll call myself Mr. Parker. My associate will be Mr. Longbow. At some point, it became clear to us that our path had been chosen, and we had nothing to offer the world. So we stepped off the path and went looking for the fortune that we knew was looking for us. And here was the thing. The longest distance between 2 points is a kidnapper and his money. But we were through jerking around.
What I heard was you ready to put a woman's life at risk for money.
Not money. $15 million.
$15 million.
$15 million.
You are here because you were for sale, and you will do as you are told.
You just bring me back my baby.
Are you gonna edit this like so that it's shaped, or is it freeform?
It's freeform. You know, the one thing I always enjoy about Low Res's podcast is like it always just kind of, they'll talk about the film for 10 minutes and then it just deviates to everything else territory-wise.
Yeah. I do. I love that too. That's like a huge. That's what I tune in for. I'm like, let's hear a little bit about the movie, and then it goes off, and you're like, wow, this is fun.
Yeah. So I had Sean of the Zoobox podcast recently on my show, and then I went on his show. And we covered 12 Angry Men recently, and we were really getting into like the heat of like, oh, this is the art of the argument. This is how these guys' biases are changed and switched up. And then like we just start talking about like Tobey Maguire's like Pussy Posse. I don't know how it got to that, but it's just, you know, it's like these conversations just flow in different directions, just like from one little thread. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, I listened to the Fly episode, and that sounded really like it, because you did this introduction and it went right seamlessly right into the movies. I was like, wow, that was really, really well done.
Yeah. I try to sneak in like, okay, what's a good bit of line of dialogue that will like get people more invested in like, oh, I want to go back and watch The Fly again. That was a good time, you know. And then you kind of sneak in the viewer, and then, you know, I'll end it off with like a quote or some like quick little tidbit from the film by the end as well to kind of close it out nicely, and then just let it take off.
Yeah.
Treat it like a craft.
Yeah. I think that's like, yeah, I think it's a great sort of creative output to do these, to like do podcasts. Just, I mean, because when it's somebody like you doing it, you come from like, I'm going to treat this with care, and I'm going to treat this like it's a craft, and you end up with this project that sounds like, oh yeah, there's a lot of thought that went into this. Like immediately I got that.
Yeah, so, definitely. Thanks. It's yeah. I mean, I'm working off of a MacBook right now that's like always breathes very heavily, and it can't sometimes handle all the nooks and crannies and the pressure that it takes just to adjust those audio files and make it as grandiose as I can. But I work through it. I do the best I can. But I did want to quickly ask, like, when did you start doing your podcast? Because I've been listening to it recently, and I've been really kind of digging what the theme that you guys have, or the framework you guys have really kind of built around movie discussion with alcohol, and like an alcohol that like basically complements a movie strongly, or is maybe even featured in the movie. And how do you, what inspired you to, I guess, to link those things?
Well, it was the podcast we started I started by myself, like I think in September of last year, and I did 2 episodes, and it was kind of political. And I listened back to it, and I was like, oh, this is just regurgitated bullshit. And well, it's not bullshit, but it's like when it comes from my mouth, it sounded like bullshit. I was like, that doesn't sound. So I the reason for starting one was I was listening to the Perfume Nationalist, and I forget which episode it was, but Jack went on this like whole thing about, if you should start a podcast, don't make it sleek, don't wait until you're ready, don't wait until you have the money, just get the worst microphone you can find and just start it, and don't worry about like what it's going to sound like or what you're going to talk about. You just do it. And so I went off of that, and then I like I said, after I did those 2 episodes, I thought of like, well, the perfume in movies is so good, and it's so kind of like singular, and I wanted to do that in a different way, because he goes through like Criterion stuff and like art films and other stuff. He goes kind of runs the gamut, but I kind of wanted to make it like a drinking club for guys, that like we could I worked at the booze industry for about 7 years, and my co-host Trevor has worked in the booze industry for about 15 years. And so I know that we know booze, and Trevor knows way more than I do, but I know I can kind of talk about it. And then the movies, it's like always just like kind of movies that helped, that I saw when I was younger as a young man, kind of coming up, and coming of age stories or road trip stories, Western stories, kind of, all that type of stuff. To me, was like just good guy dude films to watch.
Yeah, I think you've gone on record a couple times saying like just good old fashioned like American films that, I've in some ways kind of have sort of lost their appeal in some of the more widespread circles, but are starting to meet this resurgence, I guess, and more people are talking about a lot of these classics, or should have been classics, these hard-boiled, just stylistic, American way kind of movie theming and framing, and it's I think it's cool that you're spotlighting a lot of these kinds of movies, and the one we're about to talk about is definitely up that alley as well. I guess I kind of do a similar thing where I'm more kind of like, I do a bit of that, but it's mostly just like the genre movie of the past that's kind of like overlooked or not given enough love or attention. When I say it all the time, when everything is Marvel crazy and Disney crazy, and just anything Hollywood puts out today is just usually sterile and garbage and just not worth the time or effort. And the whole last year and a half has been like the best time to revisit these classics, because it's like there's so many we can rediscover from our past, and then there's so many things we haven't seen yet that should be seen. So I think we definitely kind of share in like a similar kind of nostalgia.
Yeah, and in the sort of hopes that it'll rub off, and you can kind of reinvigorate the culture into watching or experiencing weird movies. Like now, a weird movie to people is like Clockwork Orange or something, or like Good, the Bad, the Ugly, or like Fistful of Dollars. They're like, wow, I watched this movie. You know what I mean? And then you're like, well, have you? I had some friends and they're actors, and I was talking to them. They're doing this game of like quoting movies, and so I quoted something from 5 Easy Pieces, and there was like guy my age, guy a little older, guy even more older, and a guy even more older, and none of them got it. And I was like, oh, it's 5 Easy Pieces, and none of them had seen it. It's just like that's not even like a really deep like movie to find. That's like New Hollywood there. Like it's a basic kind of movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so nobody watches. If they're not watching that, then they're not watching like Buffalo 66 or Arizona Dream or
Easy Rider or something. Yeah.
Easy Rider. Yeah. Fucking Easy Rider. And lucky if they've seen like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah. That one's always especially like an interesting anomaly where it won like the 5 big categories at the Oscars. It's like that just wasn't happening at the time, and it gets those awards, and it's still like great to this day. You know, it's not like there's a certain like shift in the culture or just the opinion of that movie. Like it's just stayed strong since then.
Yeah, it's like it's the story of Jesus.
Yeah,
and his disciples. So it's like this rudimentary story that people just like, without context, they just go, "Oh, this is a good story." Like, yeah, because it's been around for like 2,000 years, and you know,
it's just retold. Yeah.
Yeah, it's retold, and it's retold like, you know, with Jack Nicholson and the guy who played Chief Bromden, and you even got like Scatman Carruthers in there. But yeah.
Nice. Cool. I guess we'll segue then a little bit. You picked the movie that we were covering, and typically whenever I have anybody on, I usually like to center around the movie of my guest's choice, something that they really are kind of passionate to talk about, return to, you know, just kind of let off whatever steam they have about a somewhat misunderstood or forgotten classic from the past. And right up Fleapit After Dark's alley is a movie like Way of the Gun. You revisited this recently. What compelled you to rewatch it? And what was your initial reaction?
I rewatched it like a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, and I watched it twice in the past week. And why I revisited it originally, I can't remember. I just think I wanted to see it again to see if it was as good as it was. And I was like, oh yeah, and it's much different now that I'm older. I saw this when it originally like came out on DVD or whatever, so I had it. Revisiting it now, I wanted to look up really quick, but it's never really quick, right? But I wanted to look up like the Rotten Tomatoes score. I think it's like in the 30s or something. And so, you know, I'm like, this is not a 30% movie. This is a good movie. And like a kind of a culty movie that doesn't get made anymore, and really almost like singular in its vision. Like it's on Wikipedia as a neo-Western.
Yeah.
But it's also acts as a kind of noir, has noir elements of it, has those crime movie elements to it as well. But it is a Western movie. And that's my favorite genre as being an American, you know, like it's our genre. So it's, you know, John Ford style kind of stuff, you know? So it's like, anyway, I love those stories. So I thought that this was a cool attempt at doing a neo-Western, like they do neo-noirs. And I thought the performances were excellent. The writer and director, Christopher McQuarrie, did a really great job and really exploited his success from The Usual Suspects to make this movie, because this is the next thing he did. And then, and I also sort of lament Benicio del Toro, Benny the Bull, because I sort of lament who he was sort of becoming as an actor, where you were like excited to see movies that he was in. And then he was good in that Escape from Dannemora or whatever, the prison show, but he was pretty good in that. But I saw the Soderbergh movie recently that came out on HBO Max. I forget what it's called, but it was he looks so tired.
Yeah, here's the weird thing. I did actually really like that movie, but I did notice that like a lot of these castmates, like they're not, who have worked with Soderbergh before, you know, are just not their same selves. I think just they've been so entrenched and deep into the Hollywood inner circles that now that's like when they go back and scale back to something that's got a little bit more of a moderate budget and is a little bit more experimental, they just don't always feel like themselves. I guess that kind of comes out from the performances, which is a shame, you know, because I've grown up liking Benicio del Toro like a ton. So it's like I don't know. It happens though to everybody, you know, when they get too deep into that, for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. You could see, like, you're expecting to watch that movie and get this sort of like grittiness to it, but yeah, like you said, it's like Benicio del Toro, Don Cheadle, those guys are Marvel guys, and they come on and they kind of deliver like, well, we're not doing Marvel, so we don't have to be like in
Zany,
character, but
yeah.
yeah, but instead they're just really kind of bland in it. They look tired
Yeah.
from all the Marvel movie interviews they have to do.
The one, the real MVP that I keep shooting for is, Brendan Fraser. Like, I like seeing him kind of coming back into the mold of things, but like even he looked a little like out of touch just a bit, and that's just how he looks and how he sounds and just the state of where he's at. And I partly feel bad, but it's also just like, come on, man, I know you can give it your all. You still got that performance in you.
Yeah, what's up with the weight?
Oh,
With
yeah.
the weight gain?
The weight gain, he's balding, his eyes are like bulging out. It's like, I don't know what. I mean, he's supposed to be in the new Aronofsky movie coming soon called. Well, it's like The Whale, I think is what it's called, and he plays like a fat guy that's trying to rekindle his relationship with his daughter, something like that. It's based on a play or a musical, as far as I know. I don't know. Could be.
That guy's so weird. Aronofsky.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
Yeah, he's making biblical movies.
Yeah, just destroying Brendan Fraser's life to do like a role. No, dude, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
Taking it back to the way of gun, like I saw this back in, I want to say 2010, early Netflix streaming era, and I was a little bit of a movie airhead at the time where I didn't think much of it. I actually kind of looked at it kind of as like a Tarantino sort of knockoff, because that was kind of being a thing in the late 90s. Look at something like The Boondock Saints or even a more on the nose one like The Doom Generation. It's like, come on, it's like clearly this is ripping off what he's doing. But there was a style kind of cemented from Tarantino that was kind of cool for a while, and then this movie just kind of fell off my radar for quite a while. I saw Christopher McQuarrie's later movies I saw Usual Suspects as well, but I saw his recent Jack Reacher and the later Mission Impossibles, which are competently well made. And it seems like he's very comfortable doing that kind of action fare for now. But you bringing this one up, when I decided to go back and just put it on, like I had to watch it like again, like on repeat, because there is so much going on in this movie. It's so methodical and noirish and crime action heavy and just grungy, cool. Every line of dialogue, even the ones that you think would just be like movie dialogue that's a little too cheesy to sell, like the actors pull it off so naturally. Everything that like comes together works in this film so well, and I don't know, it's starting to like creep up and might sneak up into as a new favorite, because I really like loved the viewing experience this time. And also just from appreciating like all the odds that were against it too. Yeah. And as you say, like this is Christopher McQuarrie, who, after the success of Usual Suspects, he had such a big like middle finger attitude to Hollywood, and this was kind of his response. And a lot did get cut out, especially some of the more NC-17 violence, but what we still get is like really, really powerful stuff. So I appreciate the recommend anyway. So I've been thinking about this movie all week.
Yeah. From the very beginning of the movie, with the Rolling Stones song, it's not Rocks Off, right? It's Rip This Joint. Rip This Joint. From the very opening to then what then unfolds in the first scene, it sets the tone of like this movie is not fucking around, and what the fuck did I just watch? And I remember I watched the director commentary, and do you know the origin of that scene? The story behind that?
I briefly know that was inspired by a real life event that happened in Christopher McQuarrie's life, if I'm not mistaken. But I didn't listen to the commentary though. Yeah, he had this like dog, and he had a buddy of his, and they would walk their dogs in the park, and there was this like group of hippies that were playing frisbee. They were like frisbee throwing in the park, and there was this like confrontation because the hippies were like finding dog shit on the grass, and I believe it was Christopher McQuarrie who asked his friend, like, what do you think would happen if those guys came over here? And they're like, well, they'd beat the shit out of us, but they'd also be edgelords.
Yeah, they would beat us up, But if we beat up their girlfriends, then they would have to they could beat the shit out of us, but then they have to go home with their beat up girlfriends.
Yeah. I got
yeah.
I got a weird, maybe it's a little cathartic, but I got like a funny sensation out of seeing Sarah Silverman playing Raving Bitch, as she's credited, kind of get decked in the face in that one scene. It was just kind of like, all right, we've set the tone and motion here. We know where we're at. And as far as Silverman's concerned, I mean, with a role like that, it's like not too far off from her persona. So
You're gonna wish you never fucking got up this morning, asshole, because my boyfriend's gonna fuck you up. And then after that, while he's fucking up your fucking gay uncle over there, I'm gonna fucking cut off your cock and mail it to your mother, you fucking faggot bitch. Gaylord fucking bitch. How do you like that? You like that a lot? You fucking faggot? You like to ass fuck? Fontanella fucking baby head fuck? Go ahead. You like to fuck baby heads? You like to fuck boys? He's gonna fuck you in the ass. How do you like that? He's not even gay, but he'll do it just to fuck.
Honey, she's got a big mouth, but she's not kidding. I'm gonna whip you silly, and I'm gonna fuck you stupid.
Oh yeah. Have you ever gotten beaten up like that before?
From the occasional elementary, middle school skirmish, no.
Like I've been beaten up like that before, like with a group of people just come in and just beat the living shit out of you. I've had that done. Got a scar like under my chin from it. You kind of see it there. And it was a similar situation. It was like getting drunk. I got in an argument with one of these guys at this, I think it was like a college frat house. And as I'm leaving, I just chucked my beer into like the first car I saw, shattered the windshield. And then the entire house came out, just formed a circle and just beat me half to death until one of the guys I showed up came to the party with jumped on top of me and threw me in the car, and they was like sped out of there. So I was concussed with the open wound on my chin, and I had to pay for the windshield.
Yeah.
So not a very not the same ending as these guys get, because they get their asses kicked, but then they're on their way to go deliver sperm.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's like I understand some of the criticisms people may have, like, or the first, not even just the opening, but like maybe the first 10 minutes tonally feels kind of off from the rest of the film. But I think it kind of sets up. I think pitting you with these two, like, as it's intentioned to be, these two very unlikable criminal drifters into this situation that's like different from what they've been doing in the past, I think was what made sense script wise. So I don't mind it at all. I think it's great that it's such a extreme, loud, audacious sort of opening, and then seeing like what's his name, Ryan Felipe, going on tangents with the sperm doctor about just like his sexuality, and what it's so in your face, and that's why I just couldn't help but laugh and just kind of enjoy how I can tell this is exactly the point they're trying to make, and I think it's like what Christopher McQuarrie is trying to make, and I think it's just it doesn't hold any punches.
Yeah, you need that time to like learn who these guys are, what they're after, and how they live, and
they're total outlaws.
Yeah, they're outlaws, they're scumbags, and they're looking for the opportunity for a big score, basically, right?
Yeah.
In between, they're just surviving, donating blood, donating cum. It looks like they come out of the basement of that bar. It looks like, because the line is going into the bar, and they're coming from underground. They're coming from underneath. So it's like, did they sneak in there and steal some beers or something? Where are they coming from? There is that mystery throughout about these guys. We learn a little bit about them as the story goes, but what Christopher McQuarrie is mostly just showing is like their behavior, like what kind of guys are we dealing with here? And as the story goes, you learn more about what they're capable of in terms of violence, in terms of like putting a hit together, like the kidnapping thing together, what happens when it goes wrong, how they are like a team, a pretty tight team.
Yeah.
It's really, really well done.
Oh yeah, all the stuff where they're coordinating throughout the whole, it's so unique in how it's blocked out, and like even like just like down to little things, how they're so like meticulously hesitant to like hold the trigger unless they know they're gonna shoot somebody dead. I mean, maybe like there's the one moment where Benicio del Toro like fires a warning shot, but beyond that, it's like they're trained and ready to do whatever it kind of takes. And you can tell that they've been like these kind of lost soul drifters for a while, who only have each other really, I guess, to figure out like how they can work to each other's strengths and weaknesses in situations that lead them to lives of crime. And I think what this specific situation with the baby, with Robin and all the other characters, is that it gives them a purpose. And I had to rewatch it, but it's like they were just basically snooping in and listening in on a conversation about a simple way to score maybe $1 million off of just a ransom or off a hostage situation. And then just from then on, it's just twists and turns left and right. Every character has a motive. Every character is trying to gain something from this bigger scale mess that all of our characters kind of find in. Yeah, what do you make of like even the situation leading up to just the hostage situation? Because it's such a, I mean, we were talking a little bit about how they coordinate with one another, but like them like holding the two bodyguards at gunpoint, and then realizing that maybe their plan's gone a little bit south, and having a backup idea like, okay, you say you're running, and I'll stay pointed at this guy because clearly they're just in it to shoot us. They don't really care about anything else, and then we'll keep communicating. It's like, again, it's like, it's so, I hadn't seen anything like that really before. It's so smartly tight, and it makes sense. Like if they would plan this out like so well this way. But I'm rambling.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense in they treat the guns in the movie seriously. They're not like pew pew pew, because Taye Diggs could have just popped one off on Philippe when he was moving to the door to leave, right? When he was like, when they were saying clear, move, no, like hang on, and then he kind of dips out, and Taye Diggs could have just went pa pa pa. If it was another movie, he would have just done that, maybe. Yeah. But
can't you all see there's guns in here?
Yeah, in this movie, it's like they take the guns seriously. The gun shots in the movie are super loud. Like you have to like turn the volume down because they're just because they're just so loud. Like the sound design is just really loud. You feel those bullets when they pop 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 pop. It feels very authentic. The events leading up to the story. Well, I think that it's interesting that this was something else I listened to in the commentary, and this is years ago, but I remember that he was talking about how everybody has muted tones and earth tones and neutral tones, so that you couldn't ever tell who the bad guy was. But you could tell that, was it Francesca, the woman?
Yeah.
The wife, what's that guy's name? Chittick's wife. She's wearing green throughout the whole thing because he wanted you to know that she's just all about the money. She's bad. And Chittick himself is wearing gray. Longbow and is it Parker? Is that the other guy's name?
It's Parker. Yep.
Yeah, they're wearing these kind of like off-white, muted brown, I think some gray pants, this kind of thing. So everybody has this going on. The James Caan as well. In fact, James Caan, Nicky Cat, and Taye Diggs are in the interrogation room, and they're all wearing like the same tone of shirt. I don't know if that was a mistake or not, but the events leading up to it are great, and I think the clothes kind of speak. They go with the narrative because you don't know who's good, who's bad, who are we supposed to be rooting for here.
And it even like speaks, I think, to the location they're in too. I mean, they travel across the border at the midway point, and what are you seeing out there? A lot of sand. A lot of dunes, a lot of deserts, it's these warmer looking kind of colors. And it's like everybody's kind of blending in and kind of seeping into the earth that they kind of embody. So I didn't think about that, but really, yeah, there definitely is a lot more emphasis on just how morally ambiguous everybody is. And that's one thing, you know, and I'm glad you recommended this because, you know, as we kind of talked a little bit about briefly, was it's something that's just so missing today, is to like write really ruthless characters that are just in it for themselves and have, you know, what have you, any sort of like insidious sort of goal like in mind. And it's like now it's like you gotta kind of spoon feed to people, like, why are these people bad? Why are they, you know, you can't just have them be bad. Like, yeah, and just see their story and look at it through a much more objective kind of lens.
Yeah, like it's like a sympathetic lens is the popular
the
popular way to do it now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the movie The Way of the Gun gets 30% because like most people don't know what good stuff is. They can't recognize it. They can't recognize it until, I don't know. It's one of these questions I always ask myself is like, how does culture get influenced to popularize stuff like the Ramones or something, you know, like stuff like the Easy Rider, I guess, or even movies before Easy Rider that were kind of that way. I mean, like Sam Peckinpah or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
a good influence on this movie.
Yeah, exactly. That was cool. That's cool that you said that because I thought that the last time I watched it, I was like, this is kind of like a Peckinpah movie. Because I watched The Getaway recently. I think it was last night I watched it. But I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of like Way of the Gun in a way. Like it's I mean, Peckinpah's use of violence and the way that his characters can be vicious, the way that his characters are flawed, and the way that the plot is never like well defined in terms of, you know, what's going on all the time.
Mm-hmm. Or even just like the simple act of like man's turn to violence, you know, especially if you look at something like Straw Dogs, where it's like you get driven to a boiling point where it's like you have to fight violence with violence. As it's like that's reality, you know. And I think Sam Peckinpah really understood that. He understood just like, what the lengths that drive people to maybe even insanity and or the need to protect. All those themes, I think they kind of float in here too. I mean, you can kind of link that to even the Juliette Lewis character, who has this like sudden need to protect the baby she's giving birth to, even though she's the surrogate mother. It's such a good plot point, like with her, because maybe she's the only character you can kind of sympathize the most with, because she's trying to get out of this whole situation, and she's starting to realize, hey, I actually want to have this thing for myself. I want to have this good life for myself. I don't want to be involved with any of this other crime, or have anything else taken away from me. And it's all, I don't know. It's like you see all those influences kind of like start to combat with one another, even with James Caan's character, where it's a guy who is trying to give Benicio del Toro another action plan, like a way out. Here's $1 million. Skip this town. You can live a new life. And Benicio del Toro, because he knows he's a criminal. He knows he's bad. He's like, I can't take it. Also, you're a bag man. So.
Yeah. Well, like the fact that she's supposed to be a surrogate, but she's not.
Yeah.
That's the doctor's baby. And then James Caan is her dad. And so everyone's got like stake in this thing. Everyone has these ulterior motives that are and so she even does too. So everyone's kind of twisted in their own way, because it's kind of fucked up that she's doing this, because it's not her kid. It actually is her kid. And she's just feeling really guilty about it. But she still wants to go through with it to get the fucking money. And it's like, and then
at the same time, it's hard then, because is she just as bad as everybody else then at that point? It raises those questions again.
Well, she's just not morally pure or anything. It's not like she's the worst. It's just like, I mean, it is pretty fucked up that she's doing that. and we never know why she's doing it. I mean, I know that to give her dad money, I guess her dad needs money or something. Who knows? But she's not as, but so they're all fucked up. They're all like twisted and involved with, we never find out what happens to the doctor in Baltimore. Baltimore keeps being referenced, and there is this mystery that hangs over it in terms of the intentions, except for Longbaugh and Parker. Very simple. We want the money. I'm surprised they asked for 12 million.
It was 12 or 15?
Yeah, maybe it's 15.
Yeah, but yeah.
Like, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I like that they actually use the actual weight. Like they figured out how much the 15 million would weigh.
It's like 300 plus pounds or something, right?
Yeah, and like how you would actually have to put it in all those duffel bags, and like just how much it is. And what's interesting about that is like they sorry if I'm bouncing around stuff if you don't want me bouncing.
No, go for it. Free for all, man.
But it's like it's like if you've been listening to the plot, is that it's not really Chittick's money, it's the cartel's money. And if any of that money goes missing, everyone is fucked. So they can't let like any of it go. And that as Longbaugh and Parker are just trying to get the fuck out of there with one bag. You're like, he's not letting you go as shit, dude.
Yeah.
You are fucked. And what's cool about that is that these guys are fucked from the beginning. And from that opening scene when they're laying there beaten to a pulp, it's like that tells you everything you need to know. These guys are always going to be on the floor. They're going to be getting their asses kicked.
Yeah, that was why I think the intro is so perfect, because it does counterbalance where they end up at the end, and they're just they're eating dirt at that point.
Yeah, it's kind of got that Wild Bunch feel to it. Where like these guys are too fucking bad to live. And then there's that shootout with the old guys, all the bagmen at the end, which is such a good Western shootout.
That whole breaking down that whole shootout, like even from how it begins, they kind of go to the downstairs area of the brothel. They basically like tell a bunch of nice looking Mexican ladies to get the hell out of the bar, have themselves a quick drink, and then Benicio del Toro drops this great quote. There's always this free cheese in a mouse cage or mouse trap.
Yeah.
Screwed it up already.
Always free cheese. Always, I did too. Always free cheese in a mouse trap. Yeah. And he doesn't say it like I said it, all corny. Like he says it like Benicio del Toro used to talk, all cool and shit.
Well, that's another thing too, to go too off on this, but like to his performance as well. Like, I think he originally was going to have more dialogue, but he wanted it to be much more subdued and laid back, and like, I'm a man of few words. I think simply, and I think that worked way better to the character's credit. But but going into that shootout scene, like what makes it work so well, and maybe it's kind of like almost the video game logic of it a little bit, is that you get the whole sense of scope very quickly. The way it's shot, the way it's framed, the way everything is sort of blocked and laid out, where that pedestal is, where that corridor is, where they're taking cover from and where the other guys are probably hiding out. It's like you are immediately thrust into that setting, that location, which was
totally, yeah.
Which is featured, I believe, in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I think it was also a bit of a reference, and their last names are the names of those characters as well. I think, if I remember correctly, it was some factoid about the movie. So yeah, that was Christopher McQuarrie, I guess, paying homage to a lot of those classics. And then the shootout, when it erupts, it's just nonstop gunfire. But it's like they pay attention very closely in editing just to all the clips they need to reload, all the bullets that, well, for the most part, I would say, but like it's just constant gunfire, like not giving a shit if they're even gonna like hit or miss. It's just a chaos of gunfire, and I think that lives up to the title.
Yeah, and the real time of what it takes to like reload a gun, how long it takes. It's not like boom, pop, pop, pop. It's like it takes it. You gotta like hold it, and And what's funny is you said it was a video game. I just thought that too, man. That's so funny. That's so weird you said that. In that final shootout, once it begins and they back up into that room and Parker's been shot in the ankle and Longbow's been shot in the back and Taye Diggs is running around and they're in the corner of this room. To me, it really felt like a video game. Like, oh yeah, that's the part in the video game where you're like, okay, you know, it's like Wolfenstein or whatever. Like I'm about to go out there and it's, you know, I know there's something out there. And he's shooting through the walls and shit and not hitting any. And it had that anxiety-inducing thing that a video game has.
Yeah. Even
that it has, yeah.
Yeah, even amidst a baby getting removed, like early, like every like stake is like raised, like in that last 20 minutes. It's so unbelievably cool. It's just got such a good, you know, I miss a good, just like fun, macho shoot 'em up vibe that the film like exudes so well.
It's funny because Longbow comes in with that big fucking assault rifle. And like he completely wastes all the ammo and hits nothing when by the time the bullets run out and he's like on his like 9mm or whatever he's got there. And it's like, I was just thinking that I was like, oh fuck, man, you should have, if he had that in the end, I think, you know, could have went differently.
Yeah. Doesn't he like just drop it and go for his handgun? Like
yeah, he's out of bullets. He's already out of bullets because he's just been unloading into the wall. Like, yeah. Like Jeffrey Lewis's character says is like halfway through the movie, he goes, "We can go in there and get him right now." You know, like we can go in there and get him right now. Like we're if we want to, and. That's what they should have done. Yeah.
They made it, way more complicated for everybody. And people who you don't expect to die. People who live that you don't expect to live. And it's just, it's like the perfect family affair, I guess you can kind of call it if just everybody's kind of mixed up. But it's also brings everybody back together in like a final climax. I think that's kind of a smart way. If you're going to have everybody kind of do this cat and mouse espionage, sort of like everybody's kind of behind everybody's back a little bit, like if you're gonna take those elements from like past movies, especially like from a noir film, like you got to really have a good kind of payoff, and it delivers on that. I think it again, this film was just so calculated from the get-go, and I just don't think people were ready for that at the time, perhaps, because now it's like it's more refreshing than ever to kind of see how it all kind of plays out. And then when you rewatch it again and again, you pick up on new things. We didn't even talk about like how the Jeffers Taye Diggs character has a little thing going on with Francesca as well. Like it's just like everybody's just so out for themselves, and it's like it's always just kind of something new.
Yeah, this is 2000. This movie comes out, and I think a lot of. Was it a good time for movies? I'm not sure. I just remember that this movie was so obscure it didn't come to my movie theater. I couldn't find it.
Well, it's Artisan Entertainment. They got big with the Blair Witch Project, which was 1999, and then they did their sequel in 2000 as well. It's tough because 1999 I think was a pretty big year for a lot of movies. It was like The Matrix, Blair Witch.
Wasn't Fight Club? But Fight Club was a bomb too.
Fight Club was a bomb, but it was still kind of big. American Beauty.
I'm just gonna grab my water in the another water. Just keep going. I can hear you though.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it was a time for films like those of their ilk. Even Star Wars to a certain extent, like The Phantom Menace, even though like over time it started to face a lot of ridicule, it was still really big. I was little when that came out, but I still kind of remember just the reputation of so many big films, blockbusters or not, at that time. And then 2000 kind of rolls in. It's Y2K. People are like so off of that high, but don't quite know what to do in the new millennia. And I think this is just like one of those results of that. Way of the Gun just took a long time to kind of find an audience.
If McQuarrie was smart, he would just take this, or if some fucking hack was really smart or clever, knew some people looking for an idea, you would just remake this movie and just make it with comic book characters. And it would make a fucking $1 billion if you put Batman and Robin in a situation. I don't know. I mean, who could you get? Like, I don't know. Anyway, whatever the fucking canon, comic book canon characters are similar to these guys, you could just totally just take it, transport it, and it would be $1 billion movie.
Yeah, sure.
And like 2 sequels would be following it.
Sure. I mean, I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm hard pressed right now to think of like many filmmakers that would take a concept like this in hopes of it doing really, really well with audiences today. Like again, like there's like the occasion, like there's the anomalies, like there's your S. Craig Zollers, for instance, right now are doing pretty well with their stories. They found their audience. Could be larger, but it's fine for what it is. People like us.
He has to just make those movies shorter. Like the Drag Across Concrete, I love it, but every time I want to watch it, I'm like, that's a 2 hour and 40-minute movie, and it's a good movie, but you could trim it. You could trim it by about 1 hour and 5 if you don't want to put in all of the. Those 2 actors are so good in what they do, and which is acting. They're so great at portraying who these characters are, just by sort of looking at them, that you can I just feel like you could just set it up. They get in trouble for that, and maybe show them what their personal life is like real quick, and then they're off. I don't know, but I feel like if they made, all I'm saying is, and I love Drag Across Concrete, and Bone Tomahawk was badass, and I really liked Cell Block, or it was Riot and Cell Block 99. But all I'm saying is, I think his following would grow if he could make like a tight 1 hour, 45-minute movie that you can show.
Sure.
But like, as good as this movie is, this movie looks sleeker than The Usual Suspects. The Usual Suspects had a little bit of an edgy, but that was, I guess, Bryan Singer. It wasn't Christopher McQuarrie.
Yeah.
But I think like you see this start to happen where the independent movies are starting to look a little too clean. And this movie kind of suffers from it a bit. Like this movie looks better than Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And I think it was made for $8 million, and wasn't Pulp Fiction like $3 million or $2 million or something, or maybe that something like that. Like that's how you should make this movie, because it made 13. So if you made this movie for 2 and you made 13, great. But they made it for 8 and they only got 13 back. So they're like, well, that didn't.
It really speaks to the times, and like, yeah, that just never happens really now. Like maybe on occasion. Like there was a couple horror movies I probably saw in the last few years where it's like they still kind of stuck to like, all right, we're gonna keep it at 3 million. We're not gonna go over budget, and they would make their money back, and I'd be like, all right, you know what? Props to you for at least having faith in that kind of like interest in the project you're working on. And yeah, I mean, as you say, like this weird shift of like the somewhat indie kind of movie getting much more polished. I think it's been really hurt in the last decade with this, like, I mean, I'm guilty. I'm a indie filmmaker myself, and I'm guilty of using whatever kind of camera device I can, but it's like this hyper polished kind of DSLR looking film that's just kind of become replaced, I guess, like more gritty filmic sort of looks. And I'm actually a big fan of digital video when that was kind of a thing for a little while in the early 2000s. It's a kind of an acquired taste, but there was also a grunge to that, or digital film when it was like in its early days. That no one wants to go back to that kind of style or that grit either. It's very peculiar. I guess everything just gotta look, I don't know, as we've been saying, just so clean. Yeah, I'd like to see your work. Oh, sure.
You send some over, and I have my work on my YouTube page too. It's on there as well. There's like the web series that I made.
I watched that actually. I was gonna bring that up at some point, but I was really impressed with just the unique scenarios you came up with those episodes.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I was going to talk about Low Res. You've watched his like Comfort Systems and stuff. Have you seen his short film stuff on YouTube? What he does is interesting because he really comes from like South Korean, Japanese, Chinese kind of filmmakers. So the aesthetic is like, it looks it looks polished, but when you get closer, you see the dirt, like you do in like Old Boy or something, like a good, one of those good South Korean or Japanese movie. Like there's a grittiness to maybe it's the saturation or something, but it looks slick, it looks smooth. But anytime you go on a close-up, it's like you can see everybody's everything. And the content itself as well is raw. So the image is kind of polished. You could have that juxtaposition, but so it's like you spend more money on that part and time than you do on like hair and makeup. And you feel like when you watch these indie movies, it's like they just spend everything on everything. They were like, we got to get money, hair, makeup. We need the assistants. We need the PAs. They just make it this thing that it's entirely unnecessary, because what makes those indie movies great, something even maybe, I don't know if it's indie or I don't know what it's categorized as, but something like, never mind. But what makes those kind of cult movies great is their rawness and grittiness, and that, there's like something like The Warriors, where it looks dirty and gritty, but it's also kind of, there's charm in it, because you can tell if he had 10 million, there would have been thousands of gangs and thousands, all different, but he worked with the little that he had to make it. I mean, and again, not a great example because it's Walter Hill and he had a contract with a studio to produce it. But going back to, I guess, Pulp Fiction, where it's like you make it for 2-3 million. I don't know. I mean, I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah, I agree. I agree with you that it's like it's too. It looks too polished. I guess with Pulp Fiction, it's like everybody was wearing wigs, and it does kind of look like that. Like his aesthetic is that 70s blaxploitation, kind of rough-looking, cheaply made movies. I think it's like the wrong message that people get, whether it's from religious figures and religion itself, or the movies, books, like what ends up coming out of it. Like I remember a couple weeks ago, like Catcher in the Rye was popular because people were talking shit about it and saying like, instead of like getting what that book actually is about and what it does, and to when you're young and you read it, and even when you're old and you read it, and you don't have to be a guy who goes and shoots John Lennon or anything. So like with Tarantino, it's like, well, it's got to be the flashy dialogue, but instead it's like, no, why don't you just go for that sort of grittiness that he's going for?
Yeah, play up the aesthetic, even more.
Yes, yeah. It's like style. Just have a nice, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think with Tarantino especially, like that's definitely started to kind of will off to some other kind of territory that was a little bit more, I don't know, it's like kind of more up his own ass, I guess, a little bit, where it's just like, look what I can get away with now with all this money I'm making, and Weinstein Company is going to pay me this much to do this thing anyway, so it's like, I do like the fuck it attitude, I'm just going to do whatever I want, but it's like, it still sometimes can shed into the quality of your work, and I think like up until maybe like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I thought was like a very decent return to really like quality Tarantino form. He was just like, his last couple films before that were just not, they didn't quite have the weight that like a Pulp Fiction or a Reservoir Dogs had. Or Jackie Brown, yeah. Jackie Brown, which is my favorite actually. It's the only film of his that's based on another property and somehow still works. That's kind of why I gravitate towards that one.
So yeah, and that has gotten a sort of resurgence. Jackie Brown. My thing was, I'm more sort of extreme, I guess, because I'm more like Pulp Fiction and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Okay. And I love all the other movies because honestly, he's probably the best in his field, who's constantly, consistently making movies that at the very least are entertaining. And but for me, it's like Pulp Fiction and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Even though I've seen Glorious Bastards and Django like 8 times each or whatever.
Yeah.
But like when you talk about Tarantino, I always think Pulp Fiction and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I think that what he gets away with in that movie is like that's exactly what he should be doing. He should be doing a movie where you're just watching Brad Pitt drive around. Because fuck you.
Yeah. Or
and he get away with it.
Or that thrill you get when he's just like he's beating a hippie's face in. It's like, yeah, you know, you're just like you're there, you're in it.
Yeah.
It's kind of sick of us, but it's like it's awesome at the same time. It's like that's what we're kind of deeply asking for, and it's give us in spurts. It's not like constant extremity. It's like that's how you know it gives the right punch. It's what Way the Gun does so well too. Is like when it gets brutal, it's like it'll do it when you least expect it. Or that's Greg Zoller does that so well as well. You know, I can definitely say like the first time I watched Brawl in Cell Block 99 when it came out, like twice I just went, oh shit. You know?
Yeah, me too. That scene where Ryan Philippe or Parker jumps into the fountain, it's full of glass.
Yes, that's a good example.
Just something like that. Every time I see that, I just fucking wince because it looks so, and the way how he's like kind of puking, like he's dry heaving as he's taking it out. I was like, that's what I would be doing too. I'd be like, oh my fucking god, you know, like totally losing it. There's this great thing that Del Toro does where he's saying, are you Parker is yelling like, are you still with me? Are you still with me? And he's just there and he's going, I'm still here. You know, he doesn't want to be loud, but he's just like
can't be noticed.
He wants them to know that he's still there, you know? Yeah.
That's the other thing that's so interesting about their dynamic is that like they still have this one kind of like either one of them could just like up and run and turn on the other and just take the money for themselves and just skip town or kill the other if they wanted to. Like I could see these characters maybe having that kind of much more deeper ingrained personal gain, but I kind of there's something really admirable about their commitment to backing each other up, even in the heat where everybody's just like on nobody's side. It's such an interesting dynamic. That's just like a comment I had on it, but that's another thing you just don't see a lot of. It's interesting.
Yeah, and there's like every character, every actor or whatever are like they're in their own movie.
Yeah.
There's like 3 or 4 different movies going on. There's the father and son and the reckoning, you know, and this like, oh wow, this is really intense, this emotional thing going on here where the son, he fucked up and the father had to bail him out. And because he had to bail him out, it means he owns his ass. And he's like, I'm sorry that I own your ass, but I fucking own your ass and you're in this shit too. And you're sucked into that story. And the Taye Diggs and sleeping with Francesca, and you're wrapped up in that story. And then the Jeffrey Lewis and the James Caan character, they have their own story of like these 2 guys, this is one last job, and they're way over their prime, and they're just counting the days, and you know.
If Jeffrey Lewis didn't take this job, he would have blown his brains out. Like that says everything we need to know about the character right from the get-go. It's such little visuals, just like little bits of blocking like that it tells you so much. It's just like it's perfect how everybody's got their own personal baggage, and they can't juggle it with everything else, and it gives everybody dimension. Our bodyguards, like they start off very stone cold faced and off, you know, they're very serious and straight, and then by the midpoint, like they get very emotional and very much involved, and that's just what happens with everybody. James Caan, I think especially, is probably the standout. You know, I heard like there was on set stories where he was just telling like all of his like rookie days, like working on movies like Thief and The Godfather, and this film felt like something that was so much up his alley, and I'm glad like he doesn't like sleepwalk at all here, and really just kind of gives, I'd argue maybe the most dimension probably to his character, although you could say Benicio del Toro definitely counterbalances that too when they have that one little bar scene, they're having coffee with one another, which I was going to bring up. I had a note about that, but it was like their conversation about like people who want to live life's a crime but don't actually want to commit crimes. It's like, and how the times have kind of changed, and I think that's such a weird twisted bond that these two gentlemen have in that scene and in that moment, and it's probably the most well written like 1 minute of the whole movie.
I've been watching them pile up. Nightstick, flashed away with a bulletproof vest. Fucking utility belts, right? Fucking sign on his head reading, why bother? And they love to say shit like ascertain, surveillance, affirmative. I need backup. Adjudicate. Yeah. But, you know, and you got the other side. You got these trigger-happy cocksuckers all about the shooting and the posturing. You don't know who I am kind of thing. I've been to prison. But you got caught, you dumb fuck, man. It's like these days, they want to be criminals more than they want to commit crime.
Well, that's not just crime. That's the way of the world.
Yeah. Sarno, right. Okay, so
Sarno.
James Caan is Sarno, and the son is Painter.
Yep.
And, okay. Yeah, I even think Jeffrey Lewis, when he's dying, there is this moment, this look. You don't see this from actors anymore. You know, you might see it from Bruce Dern or something, like these supporting actors, but who are really good at being supporting. Like the way that he looks over at Sarno when he's dying. Sarno says something, and he looks over, and he knows he's dying. And he knows, like, but he gives this look of like, oh man, like, how do I explain it? You know, like when you're with your buds, but you've been hanging a little bit too long. Like, you know, okay, I need to kind of be alone now, that kind of thing. And like, you know, there's just times where you'll be hanging with somebody and you'll just look over at them because they just said, and you're just like, I'm just kind of. And that's kind of, and he's kind of showing this, that you're going through that moment too, even in death. You're like, even while you're dying alone, it's like your friends can still be kind of annoying and kind of be making it worse.
Well, I was laughing at that too, because it's kind of like a not a jab, but like a joke on like the final words moment of a movie. Like this is his dying words, and he's just like, oh, I'm fucking dying, you know, he's just saying it on repeat. And James Caan's kind of giving off that face of like, what do I say here? I should probably just leave you be. Dude, that's like, but there's like realism to that too, and that's why I think it's both funny but also very honest, and that's just scattered throughout. It's just like those little bits of moments of breathing room. Even like a scene where like Benicio del Toro's going up to when the baby's like still in the process of being delivered, and he's just like, hey, I need you to focus. He's like waving it's like, it's such a hardened moment where everybody's just in total shock. You know, nobody can kind of fathom all the gunfire and all the craziness and just the screaming and the moaning, and it's like nobody knows how to like chill the fuck out. And it's just, I don't know. There's those human moments like are just so good and relatable.
And it's Longbao refuses to show any sort of humanity until he sees it the way that he needs to see it to get that sympathy, which is ultra violence. Now, he's a man, like he's talking with Sarno, he's this man who's committed heinous acts. He used to be a bagman himself, right? They've murdered and maimed people. And so he communicates through that brutality. And it's not until he sees her guts splayed out that he changes his moral compass. And he's like, at that moment, he asks about the baby. Because at that point, the money's there. It's not like they're going to have, and they know what's up. There's not going to be this peaceful handoff. The fucking guns are going off. So this is it. He doesn't have to. In fact, Ryan Philippe is standing behind him, right? So the doctor, Painter, or at least he's got his gun on him. So this isn't going to be a peaceful transaction here. It's go time. And so, but his main concern is, how's the baby? And then he sits down and he's just like, this is like, she's had enough, dude. Let's just get the fuck out of here. And Parker doesn't think twice. He just pets her head and time to face the music. And I thought that was just moments like that are what make this movie like, wow, it's fucking so strong. It's good writing, just really strong, and performances as well.
Yeah, I would say to the performances strength, yeah, because there's a lot of areas where it feels dialogue heavy, and then a lot of areas where, yeah, characters are just kind of doing the motions and seeing, seeing things as they happen, or even take like a moment where Juliette Lewis gets a hold of a shotgun and blasts a hole through the hotel door, or the motel door, and it just takes Benicio del Toro to make like a quick look, like, okay, this is where she's sitting. She's pointing it directly in the, like, he just makes a face of like, okay, I see what she's up to. It's like as he like peeks in, and
he's laughing about it.
Exactly,
he's
like,
laughing.
He's like, of course it's gonna happen.
It's like, this fucking bitch has got the shotgun right there.
Yeah.
She's just gonna, yeah. She got herself in a really good spot.
Yeah. And that was the part
really good.
Leading up to that part too, I completely forgotten that they take off to a mountain range area just to go snipe a bunch of cops and bodyguards. Like, that was probably the of all the, I mean, the main shootout at the end is great, but that one I think also was just like, oh shit, everybody like brought their guns and did not expect to be in this situation.
Well, you see him in the beginning of the movie when they're at the truck stop, and they're kind of, and Ryan Philippe is narrating about them, about like how they live. You see him, Longbow, carrying this giant bag with him with something in it, and it's not clothes. So it's cool that you see that at the very beginning, and then you see what's in that bag later, and it's this giant sniper rifle that he's really good at with. And it kind of has something to do with, I mean, Longbow has something, just, it's in my head, it's like connected to being like a good sniper. I don't know why, or a good shooter or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Longbow.
I mean, it lends to like the framing devices that get used without being on the nose, and like you say, like the characters are not totally fleshed out, but they're left in enough mystery to make them intriguing. You could assume, okay, maybe he's a good sniper. Maybe Parker's really good with a shotgun. It's just like the little nuances. Like, everybody's got like something to them that kind of makes them stand out and still have that air of mystery, even to like the very final line of dialogue where Francesca reveals, "I'm pregnant," all of a sudden, and throws everything that happened right before all this like in the gutter. It's like, we went to all these extreme lengths.
Well, she's pregnant with Tay Diggs. She's pregnant with the Tay Diggs character's kid. And so it's like, maybe it's Chittick who can't get her pregnant. Or it's a fluke and she's pregnant now. But whatever it is, that baby is not going to look like Chittick. And so the whole cycle starts again of what's going to,
Yeah.
It's just trouble.
I wish there was an extended scene of that whole process.
A sequel.
Yeah. Just the look on his face is like, oh, what happened here?
Do you think that the guys die at the end? Parker and Longbow?
I thought about that because it's it kind of ends on a note where I always thought like Del Toro would probably wind up seeing James Caan again in some sort of situation, and that was kind of James Caan's way of saying like, yeah, we will meet again. I like you too much that I won't kill you, but this is how things go. This is my job. This is your job. You've chosen to live this criminal life. I've chosen to live this kind of life. We'll give this another chance. Like, I kind of looked at it like that, but I'm open to them. If the intention was that they died, then I could see that as well. I just kind of I prefer that they, at the very least, Benicio del Toro's character lives on. But I don't know. What did you grasp from that?
I don't know. I remember in the commentary he said he wanted to leave it ambiguous, but I always thought that they lived somehow, but just didn't start shit again. They just like lived and try to be a little more calmer, I guess.
Probably settle down.
Yeah, they just took over the whorehouse there.
I mean,
but I could also see them dying at the end as well.
Sure.
I didn't know that this movie came out 22 years ago in 4 days. That's crazy.
Oh, wow. Oh, so we're
September 8th.
Okay, so we're not too far off. Well, oh man,
that's random.
If I get this uploaded in 4 days, I mean that would be something to celebrate. You're giving me a
That'd
challenge
be
here.
Cool. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So 22 years old.
Yeah. You don't see movies like this, and I don't know what Ryan Philippe is doing. I saw him in a bar once.
Okay.
It's about 7 years ago. He looked the exact same. Like he doesn't age.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with his work, to be honest. I heard like in casting for this, they Christopher McQuarrie, he doesn't like to do like normal casting sessions. He likes to have conversations and get lunch with the actors or the talent he might hire. And he was very apprehensive about Ryan Philippe at first. He thought he was like, he might be too young. He's got just this different energy. So the story goes as he says, Christopher, that he gave him a sand dollar and 6 weeks to kind of like bulk up and get ready for this role. And Ryan Philippe, after 6 weeks, gets a little bit tougher, a little bit more leaner, comes to set with the sand dollar that Christopher McQuarrie gave him, gives it to Christopher McQuarrie. And then Ryan asks him, well, why'd you give me the sand dollar? And it was something along the lines of like, I just want to make sure that you were committed and on board, because that's what I really care about the most from my talent, that they actually care about the role and the story, and that you're not just like a showbiz flashy actor, that you actually care about this. I thought that was kind of an interesting little sentimental story between those two, and it shines in the performance that he carried.
Yeah. I like the Longbow's costume design.
Yeah.
His jacket. I don't know what kind of material that is, but I always like a good jacket.
Yeah.
And I kept having to look at like the pants. Are those denim pants? Are those khaki pants? Are those slacks? And I think that they're like a really lightweight denim, like a 12-ounce, 10-ounce denim or something. Some summer denim or something. I mean, because he looks pretty snazzy for being kind of a bum. And those clothes stay pretty clean throughout the whole thing.
Do you notice even like his hair is kind of powdery?
Mm-hmm.
It's got like a little bit of like a gray tinge to it. That was one thing I think you can't really, like when we were talking about like the texture of the movie, like sometimes you can't kind of cover up those like little hair and makeup sort of moments.
Snafus.
Yeah, and I was just like, well, are they trying to age Longbow, or are they trying to, I don't know, are they just doing something?
You know, to me, what it looked like was that he let his hair was going gray.
Okay.
And it was peppery or something, and they just let it grow. But his hair is really curly, and in this movie, it's like down the middle, parted down the middle, so it's like a wavy straight. But I know from other movies, like his hair is pretty freaking curly.
Yeah.
So maybe they were like, they straightened it out, and then they put hairspray in it or something, and it's giving it that effect of like looking, because it looks pretty stiff.
Yeah, it's held together pretty decently.
Yeah, they maybe got some like hair glue in there, and so what you're seeing is like it just looks it's just like what they had to do to his head to make him look like that. It could be powdery though. I don't, if they use spray paint or something. I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's weird. It's a weird thing. Yeah. And I like that the all the bagmen are wearing members only jackets. That's pretty classic. That's a classic little nod to like being from this like old school where it doesn't. Was he? I think he wears a members only jacket in The Gambler.
Maybe it's been. I watched. Gosh, it's been forever since I saw The Gambler. It was like maybe back in 2014, 2015. And it was on an airplane, so it was a completely different kind of mood. But yeah, I'd have to go back and check.
And Thief is like, he's got that cool leather jacket. I think it's like gray. He's got like a gray. He's got this gray leather jacket. We both went for a run. I went for a run at 8:30 this morning, 8:30. So now it's like hitting me. now. It's like 12 hours later. But I mean, I'm fine. So please don't mind me. What were we saying? Oh, I know. Yeah. So in Thief, he's got this like badass gray leather jacket, and then I think maybe in The Gamblers, but I just like those little touches. And it's almost like when you see James Caan's character Sarno, it's like, oh yeah, this is the James Caan character. This is what happens to those guys in those from those other movies. This is what happens when they age out.
Yep.
Of that lifestyle.
Yeah, I miss that too. I think that's. I mean, we talked a little bit about bringing a classically trained actor like Jeffrey Lewis, who did all these westerns and much more higher end classic in the past, but was always like that character actor. Those bit parts that made him kind of stand out. He had the face, he had the look, he had the panache, and I think what we're seeing right now is just like, as actors or classic actors are getting much, much older, it's like they only hold out now for like that one last old man, old woman Oscar competitive movie that they can do, and then they say, all right, we're going to leave you to the dogs and just focus on these next young group of actors from here on out. It's like Scorsese's The Irishman. It's like, this might have been Joe Pesci's and Al Pacino's and Robert De Niro's last chance to really act alongside one another. And yeah, I don't know. It's such a, it's both sad, but it's like also, I don't know. There's like, I think there could be more of a longing for bringing like classic actors back into the fold a little bit, who still want to act and don't want to just retire up and then, respect the ones who do. I don't want to see Jack Nicholson like come back anymore. I think he's cemented his plate in the landscape. It would be too sad and embarrassing, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think like a lot of these guys don't want to work anymore. I think Gene Hackman said it, or Sean Connery. Somebody said like, none of these movies are good.
Yeah,
none of these movies are any better than what I did, so I'm not going to come out of retirement.
Some of them realized it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, and I think that what you're seeing in Hollywood when you're talking about, well, there's the old person movie that they get the Academy Award for, and it's like, I think Anthony Hopkins was in one last year that was like that. He had dementia, and it's like this rite of passage. But it's just this like system that's going, and it's like our system here, like our government. It's like, it's just a system. It's broken, but we got to keep the system going. It just goes, and it's broken, and it sucks. And I don't know if it's. I've heard, what is it? Politics is downstream of culture, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the culture reflects the society. It reflects the politics. It reflects like what we're going through. So it's like the movies ain't going to get better until we get better. I don't know what that looks like or what it is, but I talked about this a lot with like Lores on his show, is that I feel like the 70s are going to come back, that kind of new Hollywood in terms of like making movies for cheap, but they're all going to be shitty movies with like really lame propaganda.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
And so and that's going to be cool. And but it'll be like, what's his name? Key and Peele guy. What's his name? Like Get Out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Jordan Peele, but like without the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's the same kind of like. I mean, I thought Get Out was fine. I mean, in terms of I thought it was kind of clever because it made the libs kind of bad guys, and they still didn't get it after they saw it. Exactly. I love that movie. Wow.
That was my fresh takeaway when I came out of the theater. I was just like, oh, okay, that was I was not expecting that kind of commentary, and then like some people I saw with just didn't quite pick up on it. I was just like, okay, it depends. No, but like. You bring up like just where it's gone, like culturally, politically now, where like instead of watching something like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid to prep for this, like I did last night, I instead watched last night. My dumb ass watched a little movie by Coke Daniels called Karen. New.
Oh, right. How was that?
The movie's like I don't know, it's like a boomer take on like the state, like what's going on with like BLM and honing in on the Karen trend of last year. It's I was laughing a lot, but it was just so tired and like out of touch with just everything, and it was just so basic. The last 2 minutes, it was like a total like PSA, and it was just really kind of god awful. I laughed like when the one black chick has like her one Yas Queen moment, like, and just punches the shit out of the Karen character. But it's like it thinks it's like it's being on the nose and funny, like, and quirky on purpose. Like, it has a self-aware sort of charm, but it really doesn't. Like, there's a line where I guess Coke Daniels wrote this line, but it's like a guy says like, wait, her name's Karen and she acts like a Karen? Are we in some kind of like SNL skit or whatever? I'm like, Coke Daniels, if that is your real name, you did not earn that moment. That was so sappy and dumb, and your name sounds like a drink I could order at the bar right now. I can get a Coke Daniels on the rocks with a cherry on top.
I don't know how it's faring in terms of if people are watching it, but I don't think people will.
No.
I think more white people will watch that movie than black people.
Yeah. I'm one of those white people.
Yeah, well, you could even argue maybe it's made for people who like you who watch it, sure, so that you get angry at it or something. You never know. It's like, oh, they'll make fun of this. This will be great.
Yeah,
this will get, they're looking. Sometimes they're looking to do The Room, like, let's make The Room. Let's remake. It'll be so bad it's good. That kind of thing. It'll be a cult classic because it's called Karen. But that meme is already over like a year ago, and like, it's kind of bullshit anyway. And I saw the trailer. I was like, well, that really wasn't what the Karens look like. There's like just taking this to an extreme, which I guess you could blame Tarantino for in a way. I mean, for the sort of like excessively like dastardly, I don't know, like over the top bad guy or some characters or something. And that like the exaggerated, I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but I just saw her perform. She was just very on the nose.
She's just like a very exaggerated racist, but that's the weird thing though too, is that like even the couple you're supposed to be rooting for, like they talk like they're Twitter users. They don't talk like real people. This is the whole writing is just so off. It's like, I don't know. It's one of those, but you can tell like it's an old guy who's just like looking at like tweets and saying like, oh, I'll just write around that. It's not even genuine. You could have probably real genuine conversations about the issues in the movie, but not with Karen.
Yeah, I watched Across 110th Street. Did you see that?
I saw the trailer, but I haven't. No. It's
on Prime.
Okay.
You can stream it for free now.
Nice.
On Prime, or this month, or however you get. I know a lot of the young guys. You guys know how to pirate stuff. I'm not a pirate. I'm too stupid I'm too retarded to be a pirate. But
that's all right.
but anyway, it's on Prime, and so I watched it last night, just to kind of cleanse the palate, and that has a lot of racial stuff in it, and I don't know if it succeeds.
Sure.
But it definitely gets some messages in there that you're like, oh, there's some racism going on with these cops back then. Yep. And it's Anthony Quinn, and he's kind of like the old guy and beating up black guys and stuff, and it wasn't heavy handed, but it still put that commentary in there, and it was a focal point of the plot. And it wasn't, it was actually about a legit issue that was happening in precincts. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, it just had a little more class to it.
Sure.
Even though that movie was kind of like a B movie or something. It's a weird. It's kind of a weird movie. It's very sort of janky at times, but it's good to watch. It's fun to watch. Yeah. Much better than anything new.
Oh yeah.
But like if you were saying about like Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, it's like I would pair this movie with The Wild Bunch.
Okay.
Because because with Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, I would pair that more with like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because it's that buddy cowboy.
Yeah.
Because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was like a Western that nothing ever happens in. But Butch Cassidy, so it's like that buddy kind of thing. Whereas Way of the Gun's like they're not really buddies, and they're more so just like it works.
Yeah,
they're partners.
They're partners.
And so like in the Wild Bunch, they're partners, and they don't all get along, and you aren't really supposed to be rooting for these guys. You're just kind of following them and watching how it all unfolds. And I feel like that with this too.
Sure.
But they do the morality thing in there.
Yeah. All that's certainly there. Speaking like, I mean, in terms of like, or in the realm of like even remakes, Mel Gibson's set to direct a Wild Bunch remake, which is still kind of been left on the IMDb pre-production cutting room floor right now. I don't know what's going on there. I mean, the last headline he made was like, was it saluting Trump or whatever in a stadium or something? That's like the last thing everybody ever heard of Mel. But I hope
he's gone, canceled, blacklisted again
and again.
You know, I think it's not going to work. I think it's too late. I think you either get the Western or you don't now. And it used to be you just got it because you were American and that was our thing. And I just think it's too done. It's you can't do it how it should be done, and it looks too slick. It looks too nice. I think you have to like do a neo-Western. I think neo-Westerns would be great because then you're just Western. You're Western filming people. Western film pilling people without their knowledge.
Yes.
And then when they watch those old Westerns, they go, "Oh, these are good."
Yeah.
You can make them a fan of these old Westerns.
I was gonna say they did a pretty poor job. They remade the Magnificent Seven like a few years ago, and that it had that polish that just didn't quite match the grit of the 1960s or 50s. I can't remember when it came out, but yeah, you know, in hindsight now, it's like I don't even think like Mel Gibson could probably switch it up. A neo-Western would probably be the only way to kind of go these days. I'll say like I'm half Australian, so I have a soft spot for Outback cinema, and they're like, if you want to see something that kind of really balances Westerns, apart from like a lot of Japanese and samurai themed films too, but like there's like an outlaw Outback sort of style to what the Australians are doing as well. Especially from like the exploitation era to now, and like one of my favorite movies, which I consider a Western, The Proposition with Guy Pearce. If you ever saw that one.
Oh yeah.
But it's a neo-Western though. It's like it takes place in the time period of that location and of that time and space, but there's enough different where it's like it's not your typical cowboy movie or war movie or whatever. It's its own entity. But yeah.
What's that movie? Is an Australian movie where it's an old movie. It's like from the 70s where it's like a teacher who's going away on a holiday.
I just watched it last year. Wake and Fright. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't able to finish it for whatever reason, but
I love that movie.
Is it? Yeah. I really want to get. I really want to finish it. I forget why. I think it was hard. I'm trying to figure out if it's on my list, but it was hard to find, but it looked really cool when I was watching it. And I think I got to the part where he was at some army party or something. He was at some party.
Yeah, it's like an old, it's like a bar. Yeah, kind of like a VFW, but like expansive. Yeah, for veterans.
Like the Road Warrior is kind of like a Western movie.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I covered those too on the show.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I love those movies. Those are great. Well, what was interesting was you were talking about Japanese in the samurai movies. It was like how much influence they had over the Western movies and how much the Western movies had an influence over the samurai movies because of John Ford. Kurosawa that was his favorite filmmaker. And so he wrote Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, and then Sergio Leone took Yojimbo and created Fistful of Dollars. And I forgot the director of Magnificent Seven, but just to like try to remake that is like, I don't know. You can't. They, they're lucky they pulled it off the first time. It's like if you think 20 years ago already, you're already in like, oh my God, you didn't have Google Maps, you didn't have iPhones, you just had like the little cell phones, and sometimes they didn't work. Wow, like you can set a movie back then and be like, this is a Western, and it takes place. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why the Western to me doesn't work, and neither do like knight in shining armor stories either.
Oh,
I know the Green.
Yeah. Like you bring up the Green Knight as an example, which I thought was decent, but it had too much of a modern flair to it that I wasn't really taken aback and engrossed in the setting that it really wanted to showcase in that film. It's visually good. I think there's some interesting commentary to say about, honor and what it means to kind of like live up to what you set yourself up for and what you're possibly worth in the world and finding a purpose. I think that's all great, but it's like there's modern lingo thrown in there. There's just like random scenes that's like, okay, you're throwing this in for, as we were talking earlier, propaganda reasons. It's like, come on, just tell like a really organic Arthurian tale that feels like of that time, and it lives and breathes of that time.
Yeah, and it's like I mean, that's cool to hear that there were those elements to it. I'll have to check it out. That there was those positive elements to it. But I just don't think most people have an interest in that. Like they might have an interest in what was going on in the 1980s, the 1990s, but most people can't even look that far back to be like interested in whether it's a Western or an Arthurian tale. Because every time they try to do those, it's like Guy Ritchie did one and it's slick and it looks and it's modern, and it just doesn't, you have to like, they're trying to trick people into getting into this thing. And it's like, most people don't give a shit about history. It's like most people don't give a shit about like good movies, good music, good books. They're just like Fast and Furious, Part 12, whatever. Fucking let's go, So weird to me, because it's like it could be at a certain point it was. At a certain point you had two things going on at the same time. You can go watch The Towering Inferno, and you can go watch Five Easy Pieces or whatever it was. You could do that. Now it's that same guy is not going to watch shit. I don't even know what like an indie movie is anymore, but
yeah, it's gone so far off the radar that like now they say like, oh yeah, a $70 million film is now an indie film. It's like, all right, I guess.
Yeah, I have a 13-year-old stepson, and he gets excited about the Marvel stuff, which is appropriate.
Sure.
Because he grew up with it, so it's still one of those things he's hanging on to. He's interested in it. But then like I'll hear my colleagues talk about it at work, and they're like in their 30s and 40s, and they're like, this is going to be amazing. You going to see the new Spider-Man? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like, why are we talking about Spider-Man? Do you have kids? You know what I mean? Like, if you have kids, I get it. You go with the kids. If not, dude, don't even fucking bother with that shit, man. Because not only is it not good for you, you could be watching better things, better sort of like movies that your dad used to watch and kind of like give you a little, but I mean, that's whatever. But like, the comic book movies, it's like most of those guys are like my age, are like, they've read the comic books. And so they're constantly getting let down because they're going to these movies and going like, this isn't like the comic book. I'm like, yeah, no fucking shit. Because this isn't for you. This is for 8-year-olds, man. And they're just giving them the new propaganda. Like, they're not giving, that's all those comic books were anyway, was propaganda. Now it's just updated propaganda. And you're upset that the new propaganda is not like the old propaganda. It's like, dude, just fucking stop watching that shit. It's like, it's a waste of time. Unless you do a show and you cover it and you break it down, you make fun of it, and that's fine. That's great. But like, don't take it too seriously. Don't expect like I know, just right around the corner, the new Batman movie coming out is going to be really fucking good. You know, I'm really excited for that one because it looks like Seven. You get it? It's going to look like Seven, but Batman. And I'm like, I'd rather just watch Seven again. Who asked for you? Who asked for that? I would be happier if I saw Batman just in blue tights again, just like running around with a bomb over his head. Because it's, you know what I mean? Because at least it's funny.
Yeah. Which that's the better response to have. Like, again, I think you nail this. Like, people take this stuff way too seriously. It's become their own religion, culture, everything. It's just like, I don't know. Step out into reality just for like 5 minutes and realize that it's not all this comic book stuff. It's for kids.
Yeah, you can enjoy it, whatever. But it's better if you have kids, because then you can have those conversations with them, and not with other 37-year-olds or whatever. You know, like other 45-year-olds at your job. You know, like those guys are, you know, they're talking about the game and they're drinking beer and they're farting. It's like,
sure.
You know, but like, it's I think like anything after Endgame with Marvel, I think what they did all the way up to Endgame was like really, really good in terms of corporate product. Great job. You created this big corporate product that lasted for as long as it did. All these movies, nice little collection you have here. It is a whole journey. But after Endgame, it's like, just stop. There's nothing after that. It's over. And then same thing with DC and the Zack Snyder Justice League thing. It's like, great. Now you've seen the dark version, as dark as and as epic as it could ever be. And he created this like 4-hour and recreating the gods, and Flash is like the new Apollo. You know, it's cool. I like it. But that's it now. You don't have to watch David Fincher's Batman.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I wanted to take this back briefly to, it might have been one of your earlier podcasts. I caught like snippets of it. But you, I don't remember how the topic got brought up, but you were really talking, you went on like a tangent about like just kind of like the missing millennial movie in a way. People kind of, maybe like the age range of like, well, so I'm young. I'm 26, so I'm kind of like on the cusp of that right now. But like what I'm seeing right now, and you brought it up so eloquently because I didn't know how to articulate this, but I was thinking about it for so many years. Was like, yeah, we're making like young filmmakers, at least in our generation, are making films, but they're making films that are kind of more reactionary to the other generations and not really reactionary to what's going on in our timeline amongst people our age as much. You know, they want to retell history. They want to go back to the old films, but they want to redo them, revise them. But it's like there's so much going on like with us right now that we could certainly like reevaluate and really take like a deep dive into. And there's not many people doing that right now. That's why I'm looking forward to Low Res's Mass State Lottery film, and the independent artists out there who are still trying to capture that. I hope to capture that at some point. You know, I'm not, I won't speak too soon, but yeah, I'm trying to, you know, get to that point, at least play to my nostalgia, what I knew growing up. And I don't know, be assigned to other people to want to do the same thing.
Yeah. I think that people, we all kind of know we're living in stupid, shitty, retarded times. And so nobody knows how to comment on this and how seriously to take it, or how unseriously to take it, and what to show. Because let's face it, I mean, you and I met on the internet. Yep. So like everything, right? I mean, you know, through Twitter, I think, and through Instagram and stuff. And it's like, how do we, you can't put that in the movie, you know, because that is boring. Because it's fun for us because we're sharing memes and, you know, and it's a weird thing. It's like unreal, but it's real because now this is real. but even this isn't that real because we're not in the same room.
Yep.
So it's like, how do you create, what are people doing in real life? What I see people doing is just like not talking to each other.
Yes.
You see friends meeting up, but you don't see like intermingling or kind of the only people that'll talk to you now are like the crazy ones, the ones that smell like shit, like the bums on the street. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or somebody you know, but that spontaneity of getting in, and everyone's very like afraid of violence and stuff. So, so there's this, I don't know. It's like, what do you write about?
Yeah.
What are we doing? I don't know what those answers are. And I'm not saying that there aren't any answers. I'm saying that those questions should be asked to the new people coming up, and to my generation, we haven't gone through it. And in a way, it's because we're constantly looking back at maybe your generation. You said you're on the cusp, but it's like looking to the Zoomers or looking to the new, no, I guess not. I don't know what. Looking back and going like, oh, well, we still understand your memes. We still get what you're doing. We're still like you.
Yeah.
And we haven't. And when we were younger, we were looking at the older generation. We're going, no, we're like you, Gen X. We're hipsters. We're going to wear trucker hats and flannels. So we're this like constantly confused and hopeless and helpless generation that, and I think there's stories there. I struggle with it all the time. I start and stop scripts, and I'm trying to get through it now, to have it be singular to my voice, without it having too much pop cultural influence or something. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be in the Tarantino dialogue tree of like, this is a dialogue movie and it's just about talking. Because there's a lot of movies like that, and they happen even before Tarantino. So, but Tarantino has a very specific type of dialogue that he kind of goes into. So just kind of avoiding that, because that's Gen X. So it's finding that voice just there's a lot of questions that should be asked, and they're there for the taking, and no one's doing anything with them.
There's so many opportunities and so many ways that we can find our voices through that. And I'm like you, I struggle with some screenwriting and like telling a story as organically as I kind of see it, and as honestly too. And it's tough when we're kind of trifled with all the noise and distraction of kind of what's going on, because what's the first thing most people in our age range probably doing to distract themselves from all of that. And I think we're just kind of we're trying to reach out for an opportunity to just, I don't even know if I want to say like expose it all for what it is, but just to like tell people that just like kindly put a mirror to our faces once in a while. It's tough though. Like I think about it a lot, but it's.
Did you see Underneath the Silver Lake?
Yeah, I did.
See, that was like to me that was like a good. Oh yeah, okay. There should be more of that.
That really kind of unveiled the curtain a little bit. I think for I've got like more normie friends who saw that and were like, oh, I never thought about this before. I'm like, oh yeah, and it's happening.
Yeah, it's like that's a kind of millennial noir film. And I thought that was clever. It's like taking that genre and applying it to a millennial. And it's like, that's kind of the only thing that, like, he's going to be homeless because he's trying to solve this case. And it's like the only way that you would be able to get something like that done, solving a case or trying to figure out this thing, would be to like just lose your car, lose your apartment, because you have to constantly have a job to keep these things going. That's the that's the thing, is that the cost of living is so high that no one has time to think about or even experience life. It's just this, or it's like holding on to the status quo instead of just going for spontaneity and getting in the car and driving out west or something, just getting lost and saying, fuck it, I don't know, I don't care where I land. Well, you need to have, wherever you land, you're going to need to have, first month's, last month's rent plus security deposits. I guess you could Airbnb it. You can find some of that, and that you should do that. That's fine. But a lot of people aren't into that. Most people aren't into that. Most people, I guess, weren't ever into that. But on the coastal cities, at least, you would have people that would be into that sort of thing and not want to be artists. They were just living that life. Sometimes you meet characters like that still, who are just like, bouncing around. And I know a guy, he was like working in finance for years in New York, and then just said, fuck it, and lived in Miami for 15 years, and then went out to Colorado for a while. I know another guy, he was a sports writer in New York, and then he went and lived in Hawaii and became like a paddle racer by accident. And then he started doing writing gigs locally, writing about Mai Tais. And then he ended up, and now he's doing stand-in work for a really famous actor. And he's been doing that for 12 years. So you just meet people like that. You're like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, just live an interesting life. But we're not taught like, no, you can't be interesting. You have to go to college, you have to get a debt, and you got to pay that debt off. So you got to get a job immediately right after.
Got work that 9 to 5, and then live the mundanity of it all, and just don't ask any questions. Just stick by all the rules in place. And it's just, and I think, maybe you and I probably can relate. We both kind of have, I guess, a little bit of a hustle kind of gig sort of kind of lifestyle where it's like, it's just next job. My schedule's always out of whack, so it's like I can't even describe in full right now like how crazy it is, like on a work level, on top of doing something like this, which I love doing, as just to connect with people and get their taste and their sense on movies that you don't, just those kinds of voices you just don't hear as often. None of the big checkmarked platforms that claim to be doing movie podcasts, but are just, as we've been taking all this back, or talking about the mainstream stuff.
So did you like Jack Reacher, the first one?
I liked it a lot. I thought it was kind of underrated when it came out, because
me too.
That film, when I saw it, I hadn't known Christopher McQuarrie was attached to that one until like much later, but his and I don't know if this was all him or if it was just the choreography, but like his attention to just like the physicality of the characters and the fight sequences and how clumsy so much of it was, like, really appealed to me. Like, oh, this is actually how it goes down in a fight, where everybody doesn't quite know what they're doing or can't predict the other person's move set or whatever. When you punch somebody, it hurts them, but it also hurts your hand. It's like little things like that. Or those two thugs trying to like, take down Tom Cruise, but they keep bumping into each other and hitting each other in the head. Like it's hilarious because that actually does happen.
I liked. There's like this 8-minute no dialogue scene in the very beginning of the assassination,
the sniper
scene.
sequence.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really great. That was really cool. Just that alone won me over for the rest of the movie. And then Tom Cruise just looks really comfortable. Like, not like he's giving a comfortable performance, but it looks just like he as an actor, he feels comfortable. So he can act in it and not feel a pressure of like the Ethan Hunt type deal, where it's mostly about the stunts and about than it is about. And so than it is about sort of acting or giving a performance. But in Jack Reacher, he gets to do the performance and do the action stuff. So because it was smaller, It wasn't these huge stunts that they're doing. And I think McQuarrie did a pretty good job with the last few Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, where do you go with those, you know?
Sure. I think he's now, it's that director status I've talked about before, where like he's just comfortable now where he's at. He's fine to do another one and maybe another one after. It depends just how he is in his career. I talked about this on one of the earlier shows with Ridley Scott, and it's like he's comfortable where he's at now too. Like he started off making some from the ground up, just making some classics, and then now he's just dishing out movies left and right, regardless of the quality of them. He's just directing because he likes to direct.
Did you see Kingdom of Heaven?
Yeah.
Did you see the director's cut?
Maybe. One of the versions I watched direct to cable and then maybe rented at one point, but I don't know.
So they cut his movie by, I think, 45 minutes or something. And that's the version, the theatrical version. And then they did a limited thing where they did like a road show with the director's cut. And they only did it like on the West Coast, like on the California. They just went up and down California showing this at these theater houses or movie houses or whatever. But it's on Prime. You can rent it or buy it. It's like $12.99 to buy. But that version is really good. That was like, I watched that. I was like, oh, this motherfucker can still make movies. It's really good. And it's such a complete. Sometimes you watch deleted scenes and stuff, and you're like, oh, this is just like I watched The Hateful Eight, the uncut version of that, and I didn't like it, but and I liked the original. But with this movie, Kingdom of Heaven, you can tell like, wow, man, sometimes when you take away those, I don't even think it was 45 minutes. It might have been 25 minutes, but whatever they took away when they put it back in, like it's one of my favorite movies, like of the new millennium is that movie, that director's cut version of it, because it's epic and it's about the Crusades, and there's just I don't know. It was really well done. And I'd recommend it if you haven't seen it to check it out. That's really good.
I'll definitely need to revisit that and see like the extended version and what it has going with it, because I think Ridley's definitely most at home when he is fixated with like swashbuckling swords, fantasy, or even like stuff like Gladiator or that, or his new movie coming out soon is it's like another kind of old warrior tale or tournament. I mean, he seems like he really has like that style down. Usually, maybe give or take a few hits and misses, but
he did that Robin Hood movie that was really fucking terrible.
That was
no. I mean, it was just that one movie and that one version. You know, that director's cut version was like the one time I've seen him be as good as it was as good as Gladiator. I'll say that, the director's cut version. So it's like Gladiator's like, you know, it's nothing in the pantheon of film. It's not like, but it's an entertaining movie, and it's like if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. That's how I felt with the Kingdom of Heaven thing too. I was like, oh, this was a very adequate like follow-up to Gladiator, which I believe it was. Like this was appropriate, or maybe he did Matchstick Men first or something. But I thought that was that's where I'd put it in terms of ranking.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take all this back now to wave the gun. No. I was doing the rewind noise. Nice.
Yeah. Sorry.
So sorry. It's not like wait. Like, oh, you've got.
No, yeah. I as soon as I said that, I was like, oh shit. I hope he doesn't think I was saying that. Sorry.
All of this will be kept in though. Don't worry. We keep it raw.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, it's fine.
No, I mean, we covered a lot. Like, I would definitely love to have you back on and sometime in the future if you ever want to, talk about some classics. I know you recommended a couple other movies that were potential ones to talk about, but and maybe in the future. But yeah, taking this back to Way of the Gun, I would say a neo-Western noir crime thriller, a little bit of comedy sprinkled in. A little bit of femme fatale, a little bit of 1940s homage and classic Western styles thrown in. how would you, I guess, to close, recommend the movie to those who haven't seen it, or to those who may be willing to rewatch it, who've listened this far to us talking about it and plenty of other things?
Well, if you're just a bachelor dude, you should check this movie out because it's just a fun guy movie. If you're with your buds, get drunk and watch this movie because it's really it's just there's funny little gags in there to laugh at, and it's a good time if you guys are just hanging out. And then you can also let your lady watch it because the ladies love Benny the Bull. They love Benicio and Ryan Philippe. They don't like to admit it, but they like him because he looks like he's a bad guy. He looks like he'd break their hearts. So they like that. But they'll go to sleep really fast too. So put your girl to sleep because movies where they're talking and it's guy stuff, they just drift right off. But I would recommend this movie. If you haven't seen it, absolutely check it out. Especially if you're going to check out something new, don't just watch this movie. It's a movie that is sorely overlooked, and it's kind of, if you like the Mission Impossible movies, you'll be really amazed by and shocked that the same guy made this movie, and he had kind of balls, and he did take a chance to get his vision across, and he does a really good job of it. It's a really cool original story.
Yeah, to add to that, yeah, it is such it was so misunderstood at the time. And it's one of those movies, it's not a tale of redemption. It's not about the anti-hero rising up against the system. It's a story about a bunch of kind of misplaced or misfit characters that just don't fit in with the real world or with society, and kind of do things by their own code. And it doesn't have to be, it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's just, they just do their thing, and you just get to see it. And it's one of those kind of great films that looks at that through an objective lens and does it in such a cool way and doesn't give a fuck the whole time. It's like, yeah, we're making this kind of story that you just don't see in Hollywood. And I think that's the attitude that really bleeds from the movie and gives it so much rewatchability, and I would highly recommend it just on that alone. So
you're not gonna make it out of here alive.
What kind of kidnapping is this?
I got all night long. I'm not moving. Test me.
Kept your eye on your son. I know you've had problems, you're not the only one. When the sugar left you on the road.
Yeah, so Anthony, do you have anything for the listeners that you would like to plug, or anything you're working on, or anything you got coming up on the pipeline? Obviously, you're also a prestigious podcast host yourself, so yeah, fire away if you got anything.
Yeah, you can listen to the podcast on SoundCloud or Apple or Spotify. It's called Slothcast. It's with the green and pink lettering, and we have a Patreon as well. If you like the show and you'd like to become a pal or a buddy, you can also do that. Come contribute and participate. And other than that, yeah, that's all I got for now. And thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was really cool.
Absolutely. No,
it was really cool to be asked to come on, and that you listen to the show, and you have a great show as well. And I like to come on and meet new people, and you come on and you come on to our show and we'll do a thing too. And maybe next time, you pick the movie.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because we do drunk on movie, but yeah, we'll talk about it. But yeah. So and on Twitter, I'm at Anthony Sisco, and you can follow me there too. That's it.
Yeah. yeah, the stuff you guys are doing over there on your end, and just all the shows and all the content you're dishing out. It's great stuff. It's fun listen. It's just like, I don't know, it's more genuine, fun, heart-to-heart dialogue about just like really great movies that people could really benefit from today. And I myself, I just like I'm still kind of like making the rounds with just people in our Twitter and our Instagram circles and whatnot, and just picking people's brains. We all do a similar thing anyway, so it's like, why not connect and like get a stance on where we stand with certain movies, and it's just fun. It's really fun conversation.
Well, you're a writer. Brendan from the Elroy Boys is a writer. I do his show as well. Low Res is a writer and a director. You're a director as well. And Brendan as well. He directs the shows that he produces, the Isolation Chamber, and those are So yeah, I write and blah blah blah. We all do these similar, and we like the similar stuff. Eventually, possibly, that's how you create that community that fat, large-assed man Brian De Palma talks about in his documentary De Palma, which is about how we had a fraternity of filmmakers back then, and it was George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola and Scorsese and we were all and John Milius, and we were all helping each other out when they were making their movies. And that's kind of what we need now, and that's, I think, keep building on that. I think eventually, possibly, we could produce something of merit, of interest, something that we're like, yeah, this is good, and which it'll have a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 30 years from now there'll be kids going, you should watch this fucking movie because this movie's crazy. That's kind of the dream to me, is to be just a cult guy,
Yeah, just kind of like cruise by and just that status,
Yeah,
and
he's dead now. Aw, shucks.
Not coming back from this. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
And just like I see that passion and drive in so many people that are kind of in our positions right now, where it's just like just doing a little bit, like people notice, the people that really do care kind of notice, and they want to see it, or they want to help, or they all want to interact at some point. And that, as you say, like that's how you kind of come together, and hopefully something more comes of it. I really do hope so.
Yeah, the people that watch our YouTube and listen to our shows, they want it too. They want to see it. They're hungry for this stuff, and it's right there. And there doesn't need to be any anxiety about it. It's just like, you just pick up the ball. The ball's just laying there. No one's touching it. And okay, your movie doesn't have movie stars in it, and it didn't find a distributor. Fine, just throw it on fucking YouTube, man. Get it out so that we can see it and share it, because there's people out there. I'm one of those people too. I want to see new stuff. I love seeing new people's stuff. That's how I met Low Res in the first place. I watched one of his documentaries and just got in touch. Was like, that was cool, man. Just stuff like that, It's I think it's, like I said, the ball's just laying there, and we just have to pick it up. That's all.
Yeah. With in relation to that, it's like a ball, just it's being nudged right now. The playing field is there. I think we're we can only go up from here, I think, and people are noticing, which is good.
Yeah.
Well, with all that said, we covered so much. You can follow me over at Jeremobi on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Letterboxd, where I will occasionally write a very grossly sardonic review because I hate the culture on there so much, and then log off quickly. You can also keep up with stuff I'm working on too. Got a quasi documentary coming out very soon called Stewie the Demon Swine. It's about my friend's pig in North Carolina. It's quite rad. And then I got another short film that is in the re-edit stages right now called Tape Deck, which I've been playing up to death, and people kind of want to see it, and it's it'll come. It's just a lot's going on. I'm still dealing with the festival circuit right now, so expect good things to come very soon, hopefully by the end of this year.
Look, you could. Do you have a Patreon?
I don't. See, I'm not like at that level yet where I'm not like actively dishing out content where I feel like I can make a Patreon, but I mean,
are you on Apple Podcasts?
I'm trying to like cross stream into other podcast formats because right now I'm just on SoundCloud and YouTube.
And and Spotify. Spotify is really easy to get your podcast on. Apple takes a little finagling, but because you have the SoundCloud account, it makes it much easier as well. You just it takes, if you need any assistance with it, just let me know. It takes, you just have to edit your settings on SoundCloud for your RSS feed, and then set up an account on Apple. It's a headache, but it's easy. But you should do that, definitely, right? Spread yourself out. But what I was going to say about your short film and about the festival circuit is just if you put it on YouTube or on Vimeo, you can set it to private and just share the links out with people, and no one's gonna like because I know that I've been through that festival shit where they're like, yeah, you can't show it to anybody, it has to be a world premiere, no one can see it. It's like bullshit, man. Like let people see it, because I met guys that were sending me stuff I didn't want to see. They were just like, oh, check it out like their Vimeo links. Oh, I made an edit, check it out. They sent it to me like 5 times. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's great. It's a great 5-minute short film. It's a masterpiece. I've seen it 7 times now, dude. But you could do something like that too.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I mean, I need opportunities for more suggestive criticism from other filmmakers that I know, because it's like I can show.
No. You don't need criticism, dude. If you need assistance with something, if you're like, hey, I'm having a issue with this here. What do you if you have any ideas or not? I mean, just so people can see it, even your listeners. That's what I was asking if you had a Patreon or not, because it's just like then you could share that with your patrons and that private link, because you don't need any criticisms, man. You know what the answers are. It's gonna be your vision. You know what I mean? Anytime anybody's giving me stuff, I'm like, well, it's not gonna have it in there. Sorry.
I get what you mean. I think I worded that a little indecently. I meant like more feedback. Just like I want. Oh, yeah. I need eyes on the screen. I want to get like, what'd you make of this? Just kind of ask the questions. And I can go to friends and family and be like, oh, it was perfect. Like, yeah, but I have an issue with this one thing I did. Like, is there anything you would like? Yeah, just suggest. Like,
you can't do that.
Yeah.
They're like, what? And maybe, yeah, okay.
Like, do you think I should have used this lens? So like, I wasn't there. I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Things. But yeah, so those will probably start to seep from under the rug very soon, with all the buildup. So thank you all guys for listening. Thank you, Anthony, for coming on. This was fantastic. I think this is going to be the longest one yet, because the running gag is that each guest I have on, it just gets longer and longer with whatever topic or whatever we're talking about, whatever tangent we go on. So no, it was a real privilege to have you on and talk about this movie.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I'm building a habit of longest episodes, so I want to continue that habit. Hopefully, any podcast that I am a guest on, I want it to be the longest one. I don't know. I gotta have some kind of legacy, you know?
Yeah. Hey, if that's the one to ride on, just go for it.
But thank you so much again for having me on. This was great. And I'd love to come back anytime. And you have an excellent show. And so Godspeed.
I appreciate it, man. And likewise your way too. So yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody for listening. And you all have a good night.